This is a quick overview of the PRD and how to install it on your chassis. This one's showing it already installed. It can be installed on a multitude of chassis. This particular one is an older one. This is a 2006 Corsa Falco that we updated with some body kit. Actually kept the original Nerf bars on it and everything. So let's just take a quick look at the PRD engine. It's going to be mounted up onto the chassis, and up here you'll see where the spark plug goes. Down here is your carburetor. This is your air box. The air box does not typically come with a foam insert, so you want to buy a foam insert so you don't clog up your motor. And then up over here is your electronics to start the motor. You have your start button and your off button, and those mount up to the steering wheel, and then they wire. You can see the wire kit goes down, and you go underneath the seat with that over to the battery, and we'll show you that in just a second. And you keep everything when you go underneath the chassis. You don't want any wires coming underneath the chassis there, because they will bottom out. If you ever bottom out, you can short out your electronics, so you don't want to do that. So basically you mount the motor up to your chassis, and we'll go up underneath here. You get a basic motor mount for the chassis itself, and the engine does not come with a motor mount, so that's one thing you want to know about. It does not come with that, so you'll need to buy that extra. And here is the exhaust. This is the header, and you can see we actually drilled into the header to get a temperature gauge in there, and we also have a temperature gauge in here where the water comes out of the head, so we can monitor the water temperature and the exhaust temperature. This you'll have to do. This is very difficult to do, though. If you want to have that done, you may want to talk to a shop about getting that done, because that's not easy to do. Not required, but it's just something that we do just to monitor our temperatures. On the exhaust, when it comes out from the header, you have a little insert here that connects your exhaust pipe to your header. And then you always have these springs, which you'll get these separately. They don't come in the motor, so you'll order these separately. They're real cheap, but they keep it from rotating. And then you'll also have two springs on the cradle. There's also an exhaust cradle that mounts up to your bumper. That's another thing you'll need to get extra to mount up your exhaust on there. Now let's go to the next step, which is the water pump. And on the water pump, it attaches to your axle, 50 millimeter or 40 millimeter. There are adjustments for the 30 millimeter, but they're an aftermarket piece. And let's see how the actual tubing runs. You can see how this tube goes from the head to the top of the radiator, and then this tube goes from the bottom of the radiator into the front of the water pump. So that's how all that wire links up for you. Here's the radiator, and on an older chassis we had to make a couple of adjustments. We actually drilled a hole into this mount here to mount this bracket up. These brackets are pretty easy to do, and then we mounted this on the back of the cassette here, so you can see how it mounts up. They're a T, and they have little set screws to hold that in place, and they just screw into the back here. So it's pretty simple to do. Different chassis have different ways you can mount them. We had to modify this one a little bit. Some of them have a tab for you to do. And then here's the battery. The battery is mounted on this side of the chassis, and you can see how we kept the wiring above the chassis and kind of kept it underneath the seat. So therefore we didn't have any issues with bottoming out and shorting out what we did. And we try to keep it as clean and organized as we can. And so that is really the basics of having this motor on your chassis. It's a great engine. It's a great starter package. They're at $16.99, I believe, and they are an excellent engine. They put out 28 horsepower. The carburetor is very easy to tune and modify. There's a great series out there that is developing in Florida right now for the PRD series for just these engines, so it keeps the cost down. So you can get an older chassis if you don't have a higher budget, and and one of these motors, and you're up and running. If you do get an older chassis, we'll do another video to show you how to make sure you don't buy the wrong thing, because sometimes an older chassis can actually cost you more in the long run. But anyway, hopefully this helps you out, and if you have any questions, just leave a comment below and we'll do our best to answer it. Thanks.